TNA Bound for Glory. It is Bound for Glory 21. Bound for Glory is the WrestleMania of TNA. That is what it's always been dubbed as, whether it has been that or not. It is the considered WrestleMania, right? So it is Bound for Glory 21. So it should be should be Bound for Glory Goes Hollywood, if it's staying with that, WrestleMania kind of theme, if you will. But it is from the Tsongas Center in Lowell, Massachusetts, not too far outside of Boston, a city that is not that big, right? So that kind of shows you where, I guess, TNA sits, in the center of the wrestling universe, right? Lowell, Massachusetts, 115,000 people live there. If that was in New York State, that'd be like the 7th largest city in New York State, or maybe even lower than that, right? It's obviously way bigger than, or way smaller than Boston. So the fact that their largest event is coming to you from a place like Lowell, Massachusetts shows you, right, that it is not AEW's All In. It is not WrestleMania, but it is bigger, right? In the sense of TNA has had these ebbs and flows, right? This is the 21st Bound for Glory. And the one thing about TNA over the years, over the 21 years that they've had this event, and the more so they've existed, is they've had a lot of ebbs and flows, right? From being a very high level promotion that is trying to compete with WWE to being a very low level promotion that lets people like AEW just join the marketplace and then run circles around them, to then gaining some traction again. And one good instance of that is the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. The reason I say that, right, is because Bound for Glory has had its ebbs and flows from where it is, right? The first Bound for Glory took place from the Impact Zone, where they just taped their weekly TV shows. So it's essentially as if they just had Bound for Glory at their version of the Performance Center, right? Then the years after, they started moving into arenas outside bigger cities, right? They went to Hoffman Estates, aka Chicago, where they hold WWE and AEW events, specifically AEW pay-per-view events, right? They've gone to places like Daytona Beach and Ocean City and the Ocean Center, right? Where Bash at the Beach 96, a very infamous event, took place, right? They've gone to Phoenix and San Diego. They've even gone to Tokyo, Japan. But then they started to kind of make their way back the other direction, right? They've gone back to the Impact Center in Orlando, right? In 2017, they went to Ottawa, which is a notable city, but a small city in the terms of it's not Toronto and it's not Montreal, and the arena they were at fit at best 1,000 people. I was at that Bound for Glory, right? And another Bound for Glory I was at was in 2022, right? In Albany, New York, at the Washington Avenue Armory. And I can tell you, Albany, New York, right? Not a cachet city, not Los Angeles, not London, not New York, not Boston, not Chicago, not Miami, not Dallas, Texas, Albany, New York, right? And on top of that, a Washington Avenue Armory, which isn't the main arena by a long shot in Albany, New York. And there was about 1,000 people in the building at best, right? But now they're starting to move back in the better direction because the Tsongas Center, right, in Lowell, Massachusetts, can fit up to 10,000. And not necessarily saying they're going to get 10,000, but, it is an improvement moving in the right direction of growing this to be an arena product once again. So ebbs and flows, right? Started at the bottom, moved up to 10,000 seat arenas, moved down to 1,000 seat arenas, moving back up to 10,000 seat arenas. And I think this year's card is very, understandable why I think, this company is growing, because this is a card that looks good. This is a card that looks worthy of that. Now, we just recently had TNA versus NXT showdown this past Tuesday from the Performance Center, right, during the NXT television time. And 2-2 is what NXT and TNA went at in their 4 big matches, specifically with TNA winning the TNA versus NXT Survivor Series match in the main event, which saw Moose and Mike Santana standing tall as the sole survivors, as well as seeing the Hardy Boyz become the new NXT Tag Team Champions, defeating the Dark State in their 2 TNA wins. And I think that equates to this card here because, well, it helps build this card to be a big card. And I'm going to start at the top. Leon Slater versus Javon Evans, TNA versus NXT for the TNA X Division Championship. And I think this match is going to be match of the night when it comes to what these people can put on. We just saw Javon Evans, right, recently answer Sami Zayn's U.S. Open Challenge and put on a good show. While he did not win the U.S. title, he showed that he deserves and can be on the main roster of WWE. So he is a talent. And now for Leon Slater, who is the X Division champion, we saw him crowned the X Division champion when he beat Moose at Slammiversary in what was probably the match of the night at Slammiversary over the past summer, right? I think these guys are going to tear it down. These guys are both 21 years old. So essentially the same age as the event that they're a part of. And kind of fun story is the X Division Championship is less than 21 years old also. Or it is 23 years old, right? So they're just as old essentially as the belt that they are fighting for. They're as old as TNA as a company is as old, which is crazy to think. Both 21 years old. They are combined the youngest combined age for X Division competitors going for an X Division championship in TNA history, right? 42 years of age, their ages together, which is wild. Obviously, knowing my age, right? You add any number to my age and you're going to get 42. So the fact that these are two grown adults and together they only equal 42 years of age is wild. So this is the youngest X Division championship match of all time. I think this match has a chance to steal the show. One of the matches I'm looking forward to, absolutely. I don't know who wins, but this should be a good one. I'm guessing Leon Slater, he is still in TNA. I'm wondering again, I don't think this TNA NXT partnership really is ending anytime soon. So I could definitely see Javon Evans even winning the X Division championship as well. And maybe he does. And maybe he does and brings it to NXT for a little bit. But either way, this is a match to look out for. You got the tag team match for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team titles when the Inspiration, the former Iconics of WWE, who recently won the championship on an episode of Impact Television, take on the Elegance brand of Heather by Elegance and M by Elegance with their personal concierge. I think the Inspiration wins this match without really much issue. I think this is a showcase for Cassie Lee and Jessie McKay. It should be entertaining nonetheless, but I think the Inspiration wins this match. As we move on to the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. Now, 3 people have already been announced for this 20-person intergender Call Your Shot Gauntlet match. It's essentially what we've seen AEW do before. WWE doesn't necessarily do it too much, but these gauntlet matches where at the end, you get yourself like a briefcase or a casino chip or whatever you want to call it at the end of this gauntlet. You get yourself the TNA version of Money in the Bank, all right? And you get to call your shot anytime in the next calendar year. Now, the participants that have already been announced, there's only 2 of them, Lee Ying Lee and Mance Warner. So there's only 2 people who've already been announced, but I think that's fun, right? Because that leaves opening for a lot of surprises, a lot of people you may not expect, right? That's what you like about all these, right? That's what you love about the Royal Rumble. So you need that kind of surprise, and I don't want a lot of people to be announced for this because I want it to be a lot of surprises to keep my interest for this Call Your Shot Gauntlet match. No idea who's going to win because I don't have any idea really who's in it. As we move on to a singles match for Gia Miller and Tessa Blanchard. Obviously, Tessa Blanchard continuing to be booed. She's absorbing her spot as a heel in this company. Taking on Gia Miller, who personally, I see her more as a manager and a backstage interviewer. She hasn't really won me over as a solo competitor. So I got to imagine Tessa Blanchard wins this match. That's my pick to win it as we move on to this 10-person intergender hardcore war. The System, which is Moose, Alicia Edwards, Brian Myers, Eddie Edwards, and JDC, aka Fandango of the past in WWE, against Order 4, which is Mustafa Ali, Tasha Steelz, Special Agent Zero, Jason Hotch, and John Schuyler. In this match, I think the System wins this. Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz are great, but the System is just full of stars. I mean, JDC, right? Formerly Dango, Dirty Dango, and Fandango, and you know where I'm going. Moose, though, right? One of the men standing tall of the TNA win in their Survivor Series match this past week. Eddie Edwards, who was a star and has been a star his entire career. 20 years that guy's been in the ring. And whether he's been in WWE or not, if you don't know who Eddie Edwards is, you should, because he's a stud. And Brian Myers as well. Somebody who's definitely made a name for himself, mostly outside of WWE. I'm giving this match to the System. But I think Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz will help this match with some big high spots. I'm looking forward to that. Kalani Jordan versus Indy Hartwell. We saw NXT win the match this past week of NXT versus TNA in the Women's Survivor Series style match. And now Kalani Jordan, who is the TNA Knockouts champion. She is a NXT star, but she represents TNA, taking on Indy Hartwell. I'm looking forward to this match as well to see, who wins this match. And I mean, either way, it's essentially staying, right? Indy Hartwell is TNA because of the fact that she was cut by WWE and then picked up by TNA. But obviously TNA's got that partnership, so it's hard to keep track. Like, you forget that she was released from WWE some while ago because she's still on our WWE television screens. But I think Indy Hartwell wins this and gets back the championship officially for TNA. As we move on to some of our main matches, Frankie Kazarian, Steve Maclin for the TNA International Championship. Looking forward to this one as well. This is not going to be the youngest match of all time, as we're seeing, right, with the X Division Championship of Leon Slater and Javon Evans, right? We see that match, 42 years of age, those two people combined. Well, Steve Maclin and Frankie Kazarian, not so much. 48 and 38 going up against each other for this TNA International Championship. As I think Steve Maclin wins and becomes the new TNA International Champion. But either way, it shows you that at any age you can put on a show, and I imagine this is going to be one of the top matches of the night as well. Moving on to the singles match for the TNA World Championship. Trick Williams defeated Joe Henry some months ago to bring the TNA World title over to NXT, where he still holds it to this day. He got the big win at Slammiversary when it was Joe Henry, Mike Santana, and Trick Williams. Many people thought Mike Santana in New York City, where he's from, was going to get crowned the champion. Trick Williams found himself stealing the pinfall in the main event and getting out of Dodge with the belt. Now he takes on Mike Santana one-on-one. I think this is finally time for Mike Santana to be crowned the TNA World Champion. But I think either way, it's going to be a good match. It's going to be a hard-hitting match. It's going to be something that essentially highlights why Mike Santana, right? We talk about he is in TNA, but again, he is somebody who has been around with the Latin American exchange. He is a TNA original, right? He has been there since the beginning with LAX and the original tag team divisions we saw in TNA way back in the day with Don West and Mike Tenay. He is still kicking it. He is still there. I expect him to put on a show at Trick Williams. He is going to put on a show of showing why not far from now, he is going to find himself on the main roster in WWE. But we move on to what I think is going to be the main event of this card. The same reason why I think John Cena versus AJ Styles, a crown jewel, is going to be the main event, even though it's not, for a championship. This one is for a championship, but it's not the main championship. It's something even bigger than that. It is a TNA versus NXT tag team match. Winner take all. As one team's got all the belts. One team has none of the belts. But either way, I think this match would be the main event with no belts on the line. I'm talking one final table match. The Hardys. The Dudleys. The Dudleys came out after the Hardy Boyz became the TNA Tag Team Champions at Slammiversary and challenged for this match. I know a lot of times in wrestling they say it's a final time and it never really is, but eventually it's got to be. Specifically for people like these guys who are getting up there in age. There is only so much left in the tank for these competitors. They have been going at it since the 90s. Bully Ray is 54 years old. Devon is 53 years old. There was all that talk years ago that Devon Dudley was never going to wrestle again, right? You got Matt Hardy, who's 51. You got Jeff Hardy over here, who is 48. It's got to be the last time. And if it isn't, it's very darn close. One final time. The greatest tag team feud, I think, are very close to it in pro wrestling history, at least in my lifetime. I know Edge and Christian are missing from this dynamic, but still, the Hardys and the Dudleys, they have put on a show themselves without Edge and Christian. Remember the Royal Rumble 2000 at Madison Square Garden? Remember that table match? Jumping off the taxi cab, doing the Swanton Bomb, right? Doing the Bubba Bomb through the table. These guys have been going at it since 1999. I mean, Dudley Boyz have been going at it for a little bit longer than that, but as a rivalry, this has been a rivalry for the better part of 25 years. Who would have thought when you were watching these guys wrestle at the Royal Rumble, the first WWE pay-per-view of this current century, that 25 years later, there would even be a chance for these two teams to be going against it one more time? And listen, there's a lot of thought about me traveling out to go see this event. It's still not off the table. I'm big into the MLB playoffs right now, specifically with a team involved, so it's not 100% sure that I'm not going. I guess if I am going, that would mean because of something dreadful happening in my own sporting life, if you will. But either way, you got to watch this match, right? This is the match I want to watch of the weekend. Crown Jewel's got John Cena, sure, right? They got Cody Rhodes, they got Seth Rollins. I get it. They're going to have the more eyeballs in the sense, but this deserves the eyeballs. This deserves more eyeballs than that. The Hardys and the Dudleys. You don't have to be a fan of indie wrestling. You don't have to be an AEW sicko, right? If you are a fan of mainstream pro wrestling in the last 25 years and you're a fan of WWE, well, there's a reason you're a fan of WWE, and it's because of how WWE has evolved and where they've come from. This is a tag team match that you want to watch because these guys are the class of WWE. The Hardys aren't in the WWE Hall of Fame yet. It's only a matter of time. The Dudley Boyz already are. And I'm looking forward to this match. I think this should close out Bound for Glory. It was the first match announced for this pay-per-view back in July. This should close out the show. I'm looking forward to it. All the belts on the line, but like I said, really, no belts really needed to be on the line. And I think it kind of tips the hand of who I think is going to win this, because I don't think I'm seeing more Dudley Boyz after this. So with the Hardy Boyz currently the champions and currently on the TV a lot more than the Dudley Boyz, I'm guessing the Hardys win this because they're the current champions, and I see them on television more after this, while I don't see Team 3D defending their belts on NXT. But you know what? I would love to see it. We know that Bubba Ray Dudley, right? He does the Busted Open After Dark. He does the radio show after NXT every single week. Forget that. Get him back in the ring. Get him and Devon against the Dark State, right? Get him and Devon on TNA television every single week. I'd love to see it. I don't think it's happening. It's unfortunate that it is for the belts because, again, it kind of tips the hand in the favor of where I think this match is going. But either way, watch this match. It's a very important one in the pro wrestling landscape for sure.